Hey everybody, it is Tracy Lamar Ray back with the GLOM Initiatives YouTube channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are in continuation of season 2, and today let's talk a bit about compassion. We speak a lot about tolerance, but what is the difference between tolerance and compassion? So if the definition of compassion is the sympathetic, conscious understanding and empathetic understanding of another's distress and the desire to help alleviate it, how is that different from tolerance? So compassion means that you actually take the time to emotionally connect and care about what is going on with another individual. So there is a subtle difference between that compassion and the tolerance. So tolerance is not a term that I enjoy because I believe that tolerance is applied to individuals as opposed to an individual's behavior. To me, you tolerate behavior and you tolerate differences and you tolerate choices. You do not tolerate human beings. No human being wants to be tolerated. What they would appreciate, I'm sure, in exchange for tolerance is more compassion. So compassion, again, is the idea that not only do we understand what a person is going through and we understand a person's experience, but that we actually care and help and want to empathetically make a difference, if at all possible, in that person's experience. So compassion can be linked to charity in the sense that it's the desire or the motivation to want to do something for another or in some way, shape, or form help. So the difference between the tolerance and compassion is the motivation to help. So compassion begins with empathy. Empathy is the ability to understand someone else's experience and sit in another person's shoes. That takes the ability to care to do that, which again is executing compassion. So how can we strengthen or stretch or improve our muscles of compassion? How can we become more compassionate people, citizens, employees, employers, and a more compassionate world? Compassion, in my opinion, begins with listening. So we've already talked about the fact that you have to have a level of empathy to want to care, to help, and care to understand. And now that caring is executed by first listening. Hear another person out. Take interest in their story. Care to listen to the experiences that they're sharing with you, the emotions that they're sharing with you. If they are going through some sort of challenge, care enough to listen to what the other person is saying. That is part of putting yourself in another person's shoes. Another thing that we can do to exercise and strengthen that compassion muscle is be willing to understand. Understand once you've heard what the person is saying to you, what they've shared with you in their vulnerability and in their trust. Try to understand it from a perspective that's not your own. Of course, our initial comprehension starts and is based on our own personal experience and our own personal framework. But when you can separate yourself and detach yourself from your own stuff, from your own perspective and understanding of a thing, and just step outside of that for a moment and try to perceive and conceive of a thing from a different perspective, you're going to gain nuanced information, and you're going to gain specific details that you might miss from your own perspective. So, when we are able to detach from our own perspective and understanding and separate and perceive and conceive of a thing from outside of our own experience, we may be able to, and often we can, pick up on subtle details that we might miss if we only see it through one lens. So, have the ability and take the opportunity to truly gain deeper and fuller and also faceted understanding of that other's perspective. And then the last thing we can do to really flex those muscles of compassion is to try to share our own experiences with that other person. That takes a bit of vulnerability. It takes a bit of self-awareness. It takes emotional IQ. You kind of have to understand a little bit about your own emotions, your own vulnerabilities, your own desires, your own needs, and try to articulate that to another person. When you're able to do that, that builds a connection and a bridge. And so the two of you are able to find places that overlap and where your experiences may be similar. And when you find those similarities and those bridges and those connections are made, it's difficult to think of that person as an other, because you begin to understand that, oh wow, there's so much more similar in our experiences and in who we are than perceiving and continuing to perpetuate the notion of us versus them, me versus another. Those connections is what allows us to really have compassion for each other. So those are some tips and some ideas about compassion. If you found this topic interesting, or if you have some things that you want to share, please put it in the comments, and continue to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks a lot. Do you have the courage to show up for your own life? To realize your vision and unlock your potential, contact GLOM Initiatives at 757-550-4987 or glominitiatives.com.